change, make things better. And if you guys have any questions at all, please either send them via Facebook. I will actually be checking my phone, though I'm not going to have the sound on. And also you can type in the chat bar as well. So we are now recording. Fantastic. So hello and welcome to the three myths about high blood pressure that keep your pressure high and what to do about it. Oh, there's my logos and things. I'll get back to that in a moment. So first of all, before we really begin, health, I want you to know that health is a matter of choice, not a mystery of chance. We are what we repeatedly do. And so excellence and our health are not an act, but a habit. And that is really important to remember. Most people today suffer with chronic lifestyle diseases. And those lifestyle diseases are brought about by, as you will see, mainly us and our interaction with not our genes, but our environment. So health has to be earned. It's not something that we just, yes, we have it when we're born, just about. But in order to keep a health, we actually have to earn the right to keep it. And this is not taught in schools, and it's certainly not taught to medical doctors, and medical doctors certainly then can't actually teach it to patients. So today, you will learn why taking self-health responsibility is the only option that makes sense if you value your well-being and you want to lower your blood pressure. You'll also learn the cost of not taking responsibility. It will become very obvious, although I think a lot of you watching know this already. The secret formula for lowering blood pressure. Yes, there is a secret formula. Your operating system that determines results. The next step, if you want more than what I'm offering in the webinar, and a way to decrease your blood pressure in 15 minutes. It doesn't work for everyone, but it can work, so it's worth staying to the end to know what it is. Okay, so again, health has to be earned. It's in there twice. No, it's me getting the slides wrong. There we go. So this is something from a book called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's basically old beliefs do not lead you to new cheese. And it's all about how basically you can train mice or rats in a maze to go and get cheese. But if you then move where the cheese is, a lot of mice and rats still just keep going to that same spot. And some of them don't ever look somewhere else. And so they starve once they've learned a behavior. And the same is true of humans. Once we've learned a behavior, if we believe that behavior is the only thing that gets results, we will not look for other behaviors. We will not change. And this is a serious problem that is afflicting all humans, including those involved, I believe, in the NHS and government. And it's one of the reasons why we are having such a big problem at the moment, and we're having such difficulty finding our way out because people are going to the same place to look for cheese, and it's in a different place. And I hope by the end of this, if you don't already agree with me, you will agree with me, and you'll see why it's not just my belief. Okay, so who is this webinar for? It is for people who have high blood pressure, who are not happy to take drugs for the rest of their life, and are ready to invest what it takes to normalize naturally. Okay, and as some of you already know, there is no magic bullet to do things naturally. Health is not something that just happens. You have to earn it. So who am I to be telling you about health? A slide I forgot to change. Well, that's me holding the blood pressure cuff there, and I'm director of Body Imbalance UK. I originally trained as a chiropractor. I've then studied a huge amount of nutrition and functional medicine and functional neurology. And I have a huge interest in keeping people healthy, and I've run a number of online programs, which I'll tell you more about at the end as well, that help people feel 20 years younger, and biologically they will be 20 years younger as well. Not everybody, but it does happen. So my plan, not today, but my overall plan, is to improve the health of everyone I meet so much that they actually save the NHS £50,000 each. Basically, on average, most people cost the NHS, I think it's about £100,000, but most of that cost comes in the last few years of life, basically. But if I can inspire you to improve your health, and if I can inspire you to improve the health of your family and friends, called the rising tide effect, then we can actually not just save lives, but we can save the NHS hundreds of thousands of millions of billions of pounds by just not needing it. And finally, I believe that when we're at peace with our own bodies, we're going to be more at peace with our minds, and maybe we're going to be able to spread some of this peace to the rest of the world. Now, one of the reasons I am so sure in what I do is because of this man here, Dr. Bob Rakowski. He is one of my mentors. He is one of the top functional medical practitioners on the planet. He treats more Olympic gold medalists than I do. Yes, I do treat some. He has worked with huge amounts of different sports stars, each earning millions and millions of dollars a year. And he finds that even the top richest sports stars in America have got inadequate nutrition. So we're not talking about sick people. We're talking about the people who are meant to be at the top of their game, and even they have not got proper body chemistry. And as Bob says, performance improves as chemistry improves. So if we can improve the performance of the top people on the planet who've got nothing wrong with them, what do you think this kind of approach is going to do for people who have got stuff wrong with them? So blood pressure. Now, there's lots and lots of really great websites. The American government website, there's the Harvard Medical School, there's also the NHS, the British government. But one of the biggest differences seems to be at the moment in the UK, there's a big push, possibly primarily put forward by the drug companies, I'm just saying, to basically treat everyone, even if their blood pressure is only 120/80, which is normal, basically. Whereas Harvard have basically looked at it and they thought, well, really, certainly as people get older, you don't really need to treat blood pressure until it gets to 150/90. So, however, having said all of that, if it's above 120/80 and the ratio is wrong, it's not 3:2, then it's an indicator there's a problem. So whether or not it needs to be treated with drugs or not, if it's 145/85 all the time, it's probably an indicator that there's something that needs to be done. And it can be done naturally most of the time. So the only thing I'm going to talk about briefly, the basics, is systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. Systolic pressure is the upper pressure, the higher pressure, the higher reading when the heart contracts, and the diastolic is when it's relaxed. There you go. A lot of people already ask it. Okay. So why should we actually treat blood pressure? I mean, it's just some numbers, but what does it mean? Well, basically, because that pressure goes up, it starts actually causing damage in the body. But as you're going to find out, it's also an indicator of other things going on, which are causing the damage, which is causing the blood pressure. So high blood pressure is the third largest risk factor for premature death and disability after England, behind smoking, which of course is a cause of high blood pressure, and poor diet, which you're going to find out, if you didn't already know, is a cause of high blood pressure. So 75,000 deaths in the UK in 2015 put down to high blood pressure. 50% of heart attacks and 75% of strokes are due to high blood pressure. And it's a major risk factor in chronic kidney disease, heart failure, and dementia. Now, if that wasn't enough, this is why these next few slides are going to explain why I decided to really home in on blood pressure at the moment in the middle of this crisis. And that is because of shocking statistics coming out from around the world. These are some results, some statistics from New York. And at the top there, you'll see blood pressure, hypertension is basically over 50% of the people dying in New York from coronavirus. Over 50% of them have high blood pressure. Just under 40% have diabetes. Then just under 20% have lipid problems, coronary artery disease, other problems. So there's a huge link with blood pressure there. And then also results from Italy. If you read down, you've got ischemic heart disease, 190. This is basically 33% had heart disease, 24% had atrial fibrillation, then stroke 9.6, then arterial hypertension. 76% of the people dying in Italy from coronavirus had high blood pressure. And it was this massive difference between blood pressure and, say, diabetes, because diabetes is related to poor immunity. So what is the link between high blood pressure and the coronavirus? And so I did a lot of digging. And here's one of the things we know about the coronavirus. Again, I'm not going to spend very long on this, is that most of the people dying from the coronavirus are dying because they go into respiratory distress. And this is related to what's called a cytokine storm. And this is basically where your body's own ability to kill viruses and bacteria, it's basically become so desperate it's gone out of control. And instead of just trying to take out the viruses with pistols and sniper rifles and just trying to take them out one by one, it's trying to wipe out the entire virus and bacteria in one go by basically nuking the entire body, which unfortunately ends up destroying the entire body by causing clotting problems, shock, lung injury, cell death, immune paralysis, and renal failure. And there is a huge link between the causes of high blood pressure and increased cytokine problems. So we're going to get back to that later because that's part of the solution. So what are the normal risk factors of blood pressure? Well, there's two types of high blood pressure. There's what's called primary or essential hypertension, which is basically we don't know why it's there, which is pretty poor going. And most people here have got high blood pressure, and there's no reason. And the reason there's no reason, as you're going to find out, is because one was never looked for. And there's secondary hypertension, which is basically because there's some other kind of chronic health problem. So the first thing you need to do, if it hasn't already been done, is you need to check the thing that's right at the top of the list here, because the chances are if you have kidney problems, you'll know about it. If you've got adrenal problems, you'll probably know about it. Thyroid problems, you're going to know about it. But right at the top is obstructive sleep apnea. Now, if you are a snorer, or even if you're not a snorer, but you wake up every morning, you're really tired, it's worth getting checked to see if you have obstructive sleep apnea, because it could be a sleeping problem that is causing your high blood pressure, and there are things that you can do to get that under control. Further down the list, you'll see that certain medications cause high blood pressure, including pain relievers as well, and illegal drugs. So we're going to get into some of that in a moment. So here are some of the medications that actually increase blood pressure. Cold and flu medicines, especially the ones that contain decongestants, like Sudafed. Then we also have non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, pain relievers. So things like ibuprofen and Nurofen and acetaminophen, which is paracetamol. Yes, the painkillers that so many people are using can actually be aggravating blood pressure problems. Then you have steroids and immunosuppressants, so people with asthma, for instance, or people with a number of different autoimmune conditions. Then you have amphetamines, caffeine as well, birth control pills. That's a big trigger earlier on in life that can lead to problems that can cause high blood pressure later. And then certain antidepressants, well, the biggest one is something called venlafaxine, can actually cause high blood pressure. Now, there are other things though as well, general things. Now, this is according to the Mayo Clinic, which is one of the most renowned medical centers on the planet in America. So there's your age. Basically, they say as you get older, you're going to expect to get higher blood pressure. But what we also know is as you get over a certain age, your blood pressure should actually start decreasing again. So it's not. So age, yes, plus race seems to have an effect, and there's a number of reasons why that can be. Your darker skin and less sunlight, less D3, because we know that vitamin D3 deficiency causes high blood pressure, or can be. Then your family history, we'll go into that, being overweight, not being active enough, using tobacco, too much salt in your diet, not enough potassium, drinking too much alcohol, stress, and certain chronic conditions. And then let's see, this is from somewhere else as well. So poor diet, dehydration, potassium or magnesium deficiency. We get back to that. Inflammation, essential fatty acid imbalance, mitochondrial dysfunction, high homocysteine. How many of you have had actually been tested for homocysteine? Homocysteine, something that our bodies make. Okay, but it's a major cause of heart problems, arthritis, brain problems, immune problems. Homocysteine is more related to heart disease and all causes of death than cholesterol, yet very few people get it tested. And one of the main reasons, in fact, possibly the only reason, is the fact that doctors don't actually have drugs to treat it. They can only treat it by giving you vitamins and minerals. And so one of the biggest causes of health problems, homocysteine, not only is not checked for, it's not checked for because they haven't got a sexy drug to treat it. It can only be treated with vitamins and minerals. And diet. And then you have low vitamin D3, chronic stress, insulin resistance. And the ironic thing is that some of the drugs that you may be given for blood sugar problems can actually cause high blood pressure as well. And then you've got thyroid problems. And then at the bottom, there's dysbiosis, which is basically the wrong bacteria living in your gut. And now we know why it could be causing problems. We'll get back to that later as well. And then, has your doctor looked at, well, this is food substances. So salt is the top one, sodium chloride, ethanol, that's alcohol, licorice. If you eat lots of licorice, I would advise you to stop. Now, you may find that there are actually nutrients you're taking that have something called deglycerized licorice. That's okay because it's the glycerin, it's the glycerized part of licorice, the glycerol, that it has lots of health benefits, but it's not good for blood pressure. And tyramine containing foods, you can look that up as well. That's a problem in some people. But then there's also, this is all known causes, is the chronic low-level exposure over a lifetime to heavy metals. We all have lead, mercury, thallium, and we probably all have some kind of lithium inside us as well. And unless you do something to remove those from your body, you will have high blood pressure no matter what you do. So here's the first myth. Now, this is one of the things I'm hoping to do for everyone, is I'm hoping to infect you all with wellness. All right, now how are we doing so far, everyone? Let's see if there's any messages. No, we're all okay. That's good. So the myth one, drugs are helping. Now, before you go and throw away your drugs, don't go and throw away your drugs because they are having a beneficial effect. They're just not curing you, because if you stop them, your blood pressure goes up. Okay, so but here's how much they are helping generally. Okay, for every 1 month that you take blood pressure medication, you are going to live 1 day longer. So that means if you take your blood pressure medication every day for a year, that's 12 months, you're going to give yourself 12 extra days. So if you take your blood pressure medication for 5 years, you've got 60 extra days. That's 2 extra months. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but 2 months when you're about to die. If you're given a day to live, you'd much rather have 2 months. So don't stop taking your medication until you actually have the underlying problems fixed and you can come off of them. And talk to your doctor about it as well. Okay, but basically, we are, as a nation, over-drugged. This is publication Age UK, pretty important group of people. They did this 20th of August last year, and they were basically looking at a more considered approach to prescribing medicine for the older population, because more than 2 million people were on 7 or more prescription medications. Okay, and the thing is, there's been no study anywhere that looks at the side effects of how more than 2 or 3 different drugs work together. And we know that the more drugs you have, the more likely there is to be a serious side effect, including death. Both my mum's parents were, towards the end of their life, admitted to hospital, being very sick. They did all kinds of tests. Now, both times I said this. I said, it's the medication, okay, because their symptoms were so weird that it's their medication. The doctors took between 1 and 2 weeks of all kinds of tests before somebody decided, let's try taking them off their medication, see what happens. They both got better, okay, and then they both could go home again. Now, and what was it happened about a year apart, and the doctors and nobody decided, okay, why don't we just check to see if it's the same problem? Too many drugs. So basically, the report's called More Harm Than Good, and it's basically saying that medicines are being prescribed in excessive numbers in unsafe combinations without the consent or involvement of the older people concerned and without the support and help that older people need. Okay, and so basically they're calling for all kinds of investigations and basically much tighter control and investigation into why people are on so many drugs. Okay, and so yeah, basically this was from a publication 11th December 2014. Half of women and 43% of men in England are now regularly taking prescription drugs, and of course painkillers and high blood pressure drugs being very common ones. Okay, and let's see, and lots of women on antidepressants, which can cause high blood pressure. Basically, the cost of medicines in 2013 to the UK was 15 billion. So a huge chunk of money on drugs, and a lot of it could be saved. But here's blood pressure drugs. Now, you know, it came from a number of different studies, but I'm not totally sure how accurate they really are, because when I look at my patients, but here you go. Only 34% of people on blood pressure medication actually respond favorably. 97% report significant side effects. I'll get back to that in a moment. 50 to 80% of patients are not compliant with their treatment, i.e. they're not actually taking all the medication as much as they should be. And 4 out of 10 discontinue treatment due to side effects. Now, with the side effects, I think it is because so many drugs, they may be the same, but they're slightly different. And so where 97% report significant side effects, I think it's because most people have a reaction to at least one drug, and then they're eventually found a drug that they don't have side effects to. But yeah, a lot of people I know, a lot of my patients don't take everything as they're prescribed, or they haven't even been told how to be taking them properly as well. Because most people, by the way, do better by taking medication at night or in the evening rather than the beginning of the day. So if your currently blood pressure is not under control, try taking your blood pressure medication at the end of the day if you're taking it at the beginning. Now, side effects. Now, if you open up, I'm assuming most everyone here has got high blood pressure. If you open the leaflet up, you'll see the medication you're on. You'll see that there's a huge amount of side effects, but there's a chance that a lot of those side effects are put down to something that is very rarely put on that list, which is nutrient depletion caused by the drugs. So here we go. ACE inhibitors. Okay. ACE inhibitors lower zinc. And you may have seen in the news that ACE inhibitors might be related to causing more coronavirus problems. And they thought it might be because of the actual enzymes, but it might actually be because ACE inhibitors lower zinc. And so there's a list of some of the ACE inhibitors. Lisinopril is one of the most common ones in the UK, ramipril as well, but there are lots of others. And what does zinc do? It's low zinc means you'll have slow wound healing, decreased immune system function, increased susceptibility to infections, and decreased ability to fight off infections. That includes viruses, and loss of taste and smell, and also can lead to sexual dysfunction. Then you have beta blockers. Beta blockers lower coenzyme Q10 and melatonin. So the most common one that I see is atenolol. Then there's also bisoprolol, propanolol as well. There's a few others. And so what does coenzyme Q10 do? Decreased coenzyme Q10 means decreased protection against cancer and aging, tiredness, congestive heart failure, increased lipid levels, and also low coenzyme Q10 is linked to increased blood pressure. So here and this is one of the reasons why people have to stay on drugs, because beta blockers actually cause one of the problems that means you have to stay on them. And low melatonin, insomnia, depression, growth hormone deficiency, and human growth hormone is absolutely essential for keeping healthy as you age. Blood sugar changes, decreased protection against cancer and aging. And melatonin possibly has a very, very, very important role in protecting you against cytokine storms and keeping you healthy. Then you have calcium channel blockers, lower potassium, and low potassium is a cause of high blood pressure. And low potassium causes tiredness, edema, abnormal heartbeats, and blood pressure. There you go, mental confusion, dizziness, and muscle weakness. And then you have diuretics like furosemide. They cause low magnesium, potassium, sodium, zinc, B1, B6, vitamin C, and calcium. And so you've just had a look at some of the side effects of some of those nutrients. Just think how bad it would be if you had lots of nutrient deficiencies. So that's one reason why diuretics are not good for your health and perpetuate problems. So that's myth number 1. Have a little think about that. Are you on medication and expecting to get better? Has your doctor spoken to you about all the nutrient deficiencies? Now, myth number 2, as you can see there, is it's genetics. So many people say, well, my parents have got it, my brother, my sister, it's in the genes, there's nothing I can do. I have some good news for you, or some bad news if you're wanting to stay lazy. Genetics. Okay, the world's biggest study of blood pressure genetics. Okay, 2018, Queen Mary University of London, and basically they found 1,000 genetic signals which influence blood pressure, and they basically found them in blood vessels, but adrenal glands, kidney, body fat, and I won't go into why I put so nitric oxide, stress, and obesity, but basically they found lots and lots of genes. Okay, and their conclusion: taking a precision medicine approach, doctors could target early lifestyle interventions to those with a high genetic risk, such as losing weight, reducing alcohol consumption, and increasing exercise. By identifying those patients who have the greatest underlying risk, we may be able to help them to change lifestyle factors which make them more likely to develop disease. And it's because a lot of researchers understand that there's something, it's not genetics, okay, it's something called epigenetics, which basically I think means above the gene, okay. And also the thing about blood pressure problems is happening in ever younger people. Now, our genes have not changed, okay, in thousands of years. So why is high blood pressure happening more in younger people? It's because of our lifestyle and also because of epigenetics. Your genetic expression is affected by your parents' and grandparents' diet and lifestyle. Okay, in fact, it goes back to your great-great-great-grandparents. What they ate had an effect on their genes and genetics, and that was then passed on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And each generation tends to copy the same nutritional and lifestyle habits of the generation before it, perpetuating the problem, compounding it, and making it worse. But what we also know is that you can make choices in your life to actually change your genetic expression. But also, more importantly, the younger you are, before, basically, if you make changes in your lifestyle before you conceive, you actually start passing on better genetics to your descendants. And here we go. lifestyle changes your DNA in 90 days. This is Dr. Dean Ornish. He did a study on not blood pressure, but on prostate cancer. And he basically showed that by improving lifestyle and lifestyle habits, so exercise, nutrition, what you eat, how happy you are, how well you cope with stress, actually changed your DNA within 3 months. Like I think hundreds of different parts of the DNA were changed. Okay, so yes, how you think and act changes your DNA. And then yes, the impact of traditional food and lifestyle behavior on epigenetic burden of chronic disease. There is a need to reconsider prevention strategies so that the subsequent generations will not have to pay for our sins and those of our ancestors. That's genetics. It's to do with what we do. And then finally, one more thing for you to consider. The PREDICT study on 13,000 twins. Now, that's obviously not a picture of 13,000 twins. That is a picture of, I think it's Professor Tim Spector. He's a UK researcher, and he was the lead researcher of the PREDICT study, which looked at 13,000 twins, most of whom were identical twins. So basically, you took identical genetics, okay, and he was basically trying to look at the effect of genetics on health. And he basically found that it was very little. And it was actually much more important, which is why he's got a whole load of coloured fruits and vegetables in front of him, that the most important determinant factor in your health is the variety of food you eat or don't eat. So I hope most of the people here have actually been on my 28-day health challenge, where you do look at getting at least 30 different types of variety of plant in your weekly food sources. So the PREDICT study basically increase fiber, increase plant variety. That is the most significant factor in your health, not your genetics. Genetics is only about 20% of your health. So there you go, genetics busted. Time for a drink. So what is myth number 3? Myth number 3 is that high blood pressure is a medical problem. I think you may have already realized that blood pressure seems to be more of a lifestyle problem. And you may realize, of course, that lifestyle is not something that medical doctors are taught about. Now, I'm actually going to come back to this study here, basically, later on. But basically, University of Edinburgh, they basically found that you feed people poor food, they have, or rather mice poor food, they have blood pressure problems. You feed them good food, problems go away again. And I'm going to come back to that study a bit later. But basically, yeah, it's not a medical problem. It is down to these 4 big things here. Stress. Okay, I think everyone realizes that stress causes high blood pressure and all kinds of health problems. In fact, stress has eclipsed stroke, heart attack, cancer, and back problems. It's known as the Black Death of the 21st century. It basically lowers your immune system, it raises your blood pressure, it shuts down your organ systems. If you want to learn more about stress, it's in some of my training programs, which I'll tell you about later. Another big factor is nourishment, which I've already hinted at. Basically, poor diet is the biggest contributor to early deaths across the world. And the biggest problem is actually too much, as in too many calories and not enough nutrients. And this is an age-old problem. Even Benjamin Franklin, back at the time of the American War of Independence, Benjamin Franklin said something along the lines of people dying of starvation, I've seen few. People dying of excess, I've seen many. So obesity has increased worldwide, and obesity is a cause of high blood pressure. And there's been a 47% increase in obesity in children since 1980. So it's a big problem. Then let's get a bit more specific about blood pressure. Magnesium deficiency. Now, this was actually based, this is from a study done at the University of Hertfordshire, so down the road. And they basically said that not only is magnesium deficiency shown to be a cause of high blood pressure. It's also needed for your immune system to work properly. And blood tests for magnesium are inadequate. You don't need a blood test, you need an intracellular level test of it. And that can be done with a swab from the inside of the mouth. Or you could just try taking a magnesium supplement and seeing if it helps with your blood pressure. Now, there are lots of different kinds of magnesium, some of which are better absorbed, some of which aren't absorbed, and the side effect of too much inabsorbed magnesium is you end up going to the loo too much, okay? So you're not actually going to overdose on magnesium. It's very, well, you can overdose, but the overdose is you end up really having to go to the loo number twos quite urgently and quickly. So you can build yourself up to a high level of magnesium quite smoothly, but there's more than just magnesium. And here is possibly the biggest nail in the coffin of the fact that blood pressure is a medical problem. This is by one of the world's most respected heart doctors ever, and that's Dr. Christian Barnard. Just in case you're so young you don't know who he is, he pioneered heart transplant surgery, basically the ability of that, which was impossible, or almost seemed impossible, until he showed, what you can do. We can actually put new hearts in old people and they can live. And so he saved, I don't know, maybe he did 50 transplants in the end. And then, since then, heart transplants have gone to save thousands of lives. Thousands. It might even be hundreds of thousands now. I don't know. But he spent, after he kind of retired from surgery, he basically then pledged the rest of his life trying to actually prevent heart disease, because he actually realized that he could save far more lives, not by treating people once they were sick and almost dead, but by actually preventing heart disease in the first place. And he actually came up with his own nutritional supplement, and it's to do with lifestyle, all sorts of things. Now, I haven't read his book yet, 50 Ways to a Healthy Heart. But basically, he came to the same conclusion that functional medical doctors and many doctors and alternative practitioners like myself have come to, is the fact that heart disease is not something that needs to be drugged out of you. It's something that needs to be lifestyled away from you. And then finally, we have movement. Medical doctors, just looking at the moment on the news, okay, I find it disheartening that I see so many medical doctors on the news and so many NHS workers, and they do not look healthy. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be healthy in order to know what you need to do to save someone's life. But the same with chiropractors and osteopaths as well. When I see chiropractors, when I see anybody in healthcare who obviously doesn't actually look after their own health, it makes me not want to listen to them, even though I know that they can still be vastly intelligent, they can still know what they're doing. It just disheartens me. So basically, a lack of exercise is a major cause of all kinds of problems. And so you can come back and watch this later in the replay, should this record properly and we get to send it out. But basically, the better you look after your muscles, the better your heart's going to work. Okay, and there's lots and lots and lots of studies on it. And basically, move less, live less, and enjoy life less, because things won't be working very well. Here's one of my heroes, Jack Lane. That was when he was 71. I think he got to the age of about 90 something. And strangely, basically, he died soon after he was told to stop exercising because it might be bad for his heart. Basically, long-term vigorous exercise training is associated with increased survival rates of specific groups of athletes. But what we now know is that the amount of muscle you have as you age is directly related to decreased diseases, basically. And if you're 17 and you've got lots of muscle, you're much less likely to die of anything. And then there's these wonderful gentlemen here, guy at the age of 75 climbed Mount Everest, and then this 100-year-old marathon runner as well. Neither of them attribute their health to drugs, by the way. And then finally, there is one. Yes, environmental issues that cause high blood pressure and health problems is toxins. I've already spoken about heavy metals, But here's another one, air pollution. Studies provide consistent results that elevated concentrations of pollutants increase hospital admissions and emergency visits for hypertensive disorders, and also support that PM levels, that is particulate matters, increase blood pressure in vulnerable subsets of individuals, pregnant women, high CV risk individuals. So air pollution, as you may have seen, is also related to increased coronavirus deaths and cases, but it's also directly related to causing high blood pressure. Outdoor air pollution and arterial hypertension, again, another study. And what did they find? Hypothesized that underlying mechanisms include inflammatory reactions and oxidative stress in the lungs and in systemic circulation, imbalance of autonomic nervous system, and pathologic changes in vascular endothelium. Now, I'm sorry, that's all a bit of carbuncle, a lot of what's the word, jargon, but doesn't that sound a lot like what's happening in coronavirus as well? So one of the big reasons I think that people with high blood pressure are at such risk is because the coronavirus is actually further damaging the systems that have actually caused high blood pressure. So people with high blood pressure, they've already got these systems damaged. Coronavirus is just too much. Short-term effects of air pollution on blood pressure. Basically, they've showed that blood pressure went up within about 3 to 5 hours after exposure to certain types of air pollution. So yeah, air pollution, what we're breathing. If you're living in London and you've got high blood pressure, move. Okay, I'll come back to what you can do to protect yourself, but there's also what we eat and drink. This was an interview in Time magazine based on a Swedish study. We ingest these environmental toxicants with the food we eat, and since they are stored in our bodies, the levels grow higher and the older we get. And the things she was talking about were persistent organic pollutants. And so that Time magazine, that was back in 2011. This is the 2018 study. Based on repeated measurements, the accumulated exposure to certain chemicals, although less clear for the latter, may disrupt the normal blood pressure levels and increase the odds of hypertension. Moreover, individuals experiencing early life POP exposure may be at elevated risk of vascular POP effects. So that basically means that, you know, if you're someone with children living in London, move out. Okay, so overall we have, you know, and the problem is there are so many toxins, it's impossible to know just how bad the effects are because everyone is toxic, because we're getting toxins from the air, toxins from the food, toxins from the soil, toxins from the water. We know that there are over 700 toxins tested in everyone that's been tested for lots of toxins. And basically the question is no longer if we're toxic, but really how toxic are we? And toxins don't just cause high blood pressure, they also depress the immune system. They're also related to causing diabetes as well. And there's a great talk called Toxic Baby. Go to YouTube, it's a TED talk, just look up Toxic Baby. And don't think that if you don't live in London, that you are actually immune, because even whales who don't live underwater, they spend a lot of time underwater, are suffering from air pollution. Basically, the results hint that researchers should be paying more attention to metals and other toxins in the air, not just in industrial centres, but also on the coast where most people think of the air as clean. We breathe the same air as the whales, we just breathe it first. So if the whales are toxic with air pollution, we must be. Pause for dramatic effect there, I think. How's everyone doing? We're 45 minutes in. I don't know how long this is going to take, but we're getting there. Thank you, John. Loving it, brilliant. So, as you've now seen, the core 4 causes, basically stress, laziness, nutrient deficiency and toxicity, lead to most, well, I haven't spoken about, but they lead to, this is a slide from another presentation, most cancer, possibly nearly all, as we know, possibly all, okay? Nearly all heart disease, nearly all obesity, nearly all diabetes, possibly most dementia, autoimmune diseases more. Therefore, the majority of medical costs and deaths are actually down to non-medical causes, because medicine can't replace a lack of exercise. It can't replace a lack of nutrition. It can't replace a lack of stress. It can't replace too many toxins. In fact, medications are nearly all toxic. But this has led to a really bad state. Okay, this is one of my favorite cardiologists. There's a lot of really great cardiologists out there. I just wish that they were in charge of the NHS. Especially this guy, and there's another guy, Dr. David Dighton, who I speak to. Why honest doctors can't practice honest medicine? Honest doctors can no longer practice honest medicine. We have a complete healthcare system failure and an epidemic of misinformed doctors and misinformed and harmed patients. He said this in front of the European Parliament in 2018. He has been campaigning so long for decreased medication, increased lifestyle. And at the moment, his voice is being lost because everyone's talking about stay at home safety NHS. But unless we change our behaviours, the NHS will not be saved. We're only giving it a temporary reprieve. So what can we do? Now, I apologise for this slide because I just copied a table direct from Harvard Medical School. So go to Harvard Medical School and look at their information on blood pressure. Now, chances are you've already heard of all of this and you've probably tried it all. So these are the stop strategies that medical doctors usually resort to. Reduce salt. Follow the DASH diet. But have you even heard of the DASH diet? I'll talk to you about that in a moment. Lose weight. Exercise regularly. Limit your alcohol and quit smoking. And that's the natural advice. But there are problems with that, okay? Especially with exercise. Because I know plenty of people that exercise lots that have got high blood pressure. Because when you have a condition, a health problem that is measurable, okay, exercise can be your friend or it can be your foe. Because most people are just not doing enough exercise, and that leads to very bad health. But if you exercise too much, it creates lots of inflammation and stress and acid, and it stops your ability from healing. And as I was talking about earlier on with Dr. Bob Rakowski and myself, finding that even Olympic gold medalists, do not have what we would consider an optimal diet, and we can improve their function and their performance. Many athletes out-exercise their biochemistry. So just think if you're not a top level athlete, but you're exercising lots, okay, and you've got high blood pressure, you are out exercising your biochemistry. Your biochemistry needs to be upgraded and you need to do less exercise in order to get better. But most people aren't actually doing enough exercises to be well. And again, if you want to know more about that, information coming up later. Now, so getting exercise right is one thing, but one of the central mechanisms in this whole problem with blood pressure and also coronavirus is nitric oxide control. Now, nitric oxide is a very, very important chemical. It actually helps dilate blood vessels, so it helps lower blood pressure in people with constricted blood vessels. But it also is very important for signaling in the brain, so it's actually important for actually feeling happy. It's also very important for controlling inflammation and for controlling the immune system. Okay, they're all linked together. And when it's controlled properly, and when you've got enough nitric oxide, ability to make nitric oxide, your body can mount attacks against immune problems quite easily and quite well. And it can help control what's going on. But in a cytokine storm, it's because you've actually, very often, because at the beginning of a disease, you need to be able to make nitric oxide. But a cytokine storm, your body basically just releases nitric oxide out of control. Okay, and so with actually controlling a cytokine storm, you've actually got to have enough control over nitric oxide. And air pollution, which is what this study did in 2009, basically showed that inhaled particles reduced the vascular bioavailability of nitric oxide, providing a crucial clue to understanding the link between inhaled toxicants and cardiovascular disease. They went on to say that basically inhaled particles disrupt nitric oxide in the lungs. It then has a knock-on effect and it starts disrupting how the whole nitric oxide cycle works. In fact, I think I actually put it here. No, I didn't. But basically, just in case you think that nitric oxide and the idea of heart medicine is new, nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin is actually a drug given, the thing, that goes explosive, boom, okay, is actually the drug given to people with many cardiac problems like angina. Nitroglycerin and nitric oxide donor affects a dilation of coronary vessels. Inhaled nitric oxide is an important treatment for pulmonary hypertension in neonates, in children, so it's very safe when it's done properly. A myriad of vascular disorders, including hypertension and atherosclerosis, are associated with significant perturbations of the nitric oxide synthase pathway. So that's nitric oxide control. So controlling nitric oxide is key for both your blood pressure and also in staying alive generally. So let's come back to the missing link and the immune system. I hinted at it earlier, and I know lots of you read one of the studies before even joining the webinar. A powerful interaction between the autonomic and the immune systems, so that's the nervous system. So a powerful interaction between the nervous system and the immune system, which is perhaps one reason why chiropractic and massage also have an effect on blood pressure and the immune system in some people, play a prominent role in the initiation and maintenance of hypertension and significantly contributes to cardiovascular pathology, end organ damage, and mortality. And this is the key point. Studies have shown consistent association between hypertension, pro-inflammatory cytokines, and the cells of the innate and adaptive immune systems. So doctors at the moment are going around going, oh, they're putting so much effort into trying to explain why the coronavirus might actually be causing so many problems with hypertension, but none of them are mentioning the immune system link. And it's not about waiting for people with hypertension to get sick. We've actually got to treat people with hypertension now and actually get them so that they don't need the drugs. So there you go. Studies have shown consistent association between hypertension, pro-inflammatory cytokines, and the cells of the innate and adaptive immune system. And then we lead on to the study, which is only on mice so far, which basically showed that when you feed mice a really bad diet high in salt, it depresses their immune system. And it's the immune system depression that actually then causes the raise in a certain chemical that causes the hypertension. But of course, the salt diet depressing the immune system is just one way that the immune system can get depressed, because there's a lot. Okay, there is a lot of different pathways that all interfere with the immune system and cause inflammation and hypertension. So what's the answer? Well, part of it comes back to nitric oxide, because as I said, nitric oxide is important for heart health, it's important for the brain, it's important for your immune system, and it's important for sex as well, which is why Viagra is actually very much tied into nitric oxide production. Now, here's the thing. As I said, nitric oxide, when it goes out of control, is a problem. So you need things to control nitric oxide. And my favorite nitric oxide controller is something called Ganoderma lucidum. And it's probably one of the reasons why Ganoderma seems to help bring down blood pressure in so many people, because Ganoderma lucidum extract completely abolishes abnormal nitric oxide production and brings down the fire and the inflammation. So when you start taking enough of it, okay, and also nitric oxide has been shown to have effects on killing lots of different viruses and cancer and bacteria as well. So it's my favorite single thing. So my first step for everyone with high blood pressure is to learn more about nitric oxide, the foods you need to eat, because when you get nitric oxide diagnosed from food, you're going to actually improve your immune system. You're not going to increase the chances of an improper cascade. So nitric.gov gr8.com. And don't worry, I'll have this link at the end and I'll send it out to everyone that hasn't already got it. And so if you go there, you're going to be able to get a list of foods and recipes. There's also supplements that you can take, but it's nitric oxide controlling supplements that are the most important. There's also some exercises as well to help boost nitric oxide. But if you want to get the type of Ganoderma that I use, then go to bodybycoffee.myorganogold.com. Again, I didn't fit that on the slide very well, but I'll send you the link so you can get drinks with that in at the moment. But that's just one thing you can do. And again, don't think that just having Ganoderma is going to cure all your problems. It may help for a short while, it may help for a long while, but you've got to do other things as well. And one of those is eat right. Now, the DASH diet is actually a low sodium diet for hypertension. And if your doctor has not already suggested you try the DASH diet and go low sodium, then go and look up the DASH diet. But some people, their blood pressure isn't because of too much sodium, so it doesn't work. And you might want to try going vegan in the right way. You might want to have a proper Mediterranean diet. You might want to try low carb. You might want to try ketogenic diet. You might want to try paleo diet. And then within that diet, you might want to try something called intermittent fasting. Excuse me. All these things create, all these different variations can be very helpful. But which one do you choose? Well, just choose one and start, basically. Sorry, I'm just checking my notes here. That's good. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's lots of different diets to choose from, but here's the thing that you may have also been realizing is food is too weak to replete depleted cells and bodies. This is another reason why the DASH diet by itself may not work, because if you've completely depleted your system, you need more than just a little bit of food. You need to really get a lot of nutrients in your system. Okay, only supplementation was able to significantly boost nutrient levels in order to bring life back to the cells. In fact, study done back in, when was it? Years ago, showed that nutrition had a 17-to-1 return on investment. It was the Copenhagen Consensus Center. And there's been a few where they've looked at nutrition as the best way to actually improve the health of the planet. More cost effective than all sorts of things. So nutrition, supplementation, very, very important. Here are what I call the Eat Right Magnificent 7. You want to start by eating clean paleo foods, so foods that you can pick and eat that don't need processing. Lots of superfoods, super plants, you can get those in powdered forms. Medical foods, I won't cover that now. Probably omega-3s for most people, you'll see why later. Probiotics, again, very important for training the immune system. Vitamin D, very important for immune system regulation and inflammatory control as well, which you get from sunlight. And sunlight, by the way, also inactivates most viruses as well. And then multivitamin mineral as well, very important. So, of all the supplements you could take, it's interesting that when it comes to certain medication, coenzyme Q10 and fish oil, often it says, be cautioned because these supplements may decrease blood pressure in combination with antihypertensive drugs. So why don't doctors, and in fact, why don't people actually start by taking two things that people are often deficient in that can actually be a cause of high blood pressure? So along with magnesium and Ganoderma, start taking coenzyme Q10 and fish oil. Very, very important. They could, none of these things really interact with any medication in a bad way. But if you are taking blood pressure medication and you start taking any of these supplements, monitor your blood pressure. If it's starting to go low, let your doctor know so that you can decrease your medication. So let's eat right. And then you've got to detox from all those nasty chemicals. Now, there are lots of different detox. There are a few different detox methods we use. The most intense one for getting things done quickly, which is what I'm recommending at the moment, is Dr. Bob Rakowski's 7-day intense detox, which does involve taking a lot of nutrients over the course of a week and a very strict vegetable-only diet. And yeah, you carry on taking medication as well through this. And what was I going to say? Yeah, it costs about 150 to 250 pounds, depending on all the nutrients that you want to use. Okay, if you're interested in that, let me know at the end. But when it comes particularly to air pollution, the Institute of Medicine, I think that was in the UK, basically looked at the effects of air pollution, and they found that by simply taking these B vitamins, 400 micrograms of B9, about 1.5 milligrams of B6, and 2.4 micrograms of B12 really helped mediate the effects of a lot of air pollution. Now, there are other nutrients, but this was a good study. And again, why doctors, the government aren't actually telling people who are at risk, who are living in London, in Birmingham, in Manchester, why they're not telling everyone to start taking these nutrients when they've already said that. I mean, air pollution in London is killing, what, 6,000 to 9,000 people a year. Why they weren't already telling people before the coronavirus to start taking these vitamins if you live in London and give them to your kids with asthma? I think the fact that these studies have been done and the fact that this isn't being disseminated, the fact that doctors don't know about this is absolutely, it's absolutely disgusting, because they could have been saving so many lives if they'd have taken action on things that weren't drugs. Anyway, so what is the secret formula? Well, the secret formula to naturally lower blood pressure is, well, you basically need the right information. As you've seen, if you don't have the right information, you can't do things, okay? So you need the strategies, but so many people know that they should be eating more, exercising more, eating more healthily, exercising more, but they don't do it. So yeah, information is great, but what you also need is accountability to do the actual work. And to do that, you often need a coach, someone to help you, or a team to help you get up this mountain of health. Because so many people, they just don't do. Okay, some people can be given the information and they can run with it and do everything that's needed. Other people really need a coach, depending in different areas. Like in health, I don't need a coach. If someone tells me to do something, I do it. In other areas, I need a coach, otherwise I don't do it. So yeah, I spend money on coaches in other areas of my life. I spend a lot of money learning about health, but I don't necessarily need a health coach, not at the moment anyway, although I am investing in learning more. And you also need the right mindset, because a coach can help you get the right mindset, and some training can as well. So how do we go about this? Well, this is another of my heroes, Richard Buckminster Fuller. You should go and let critical thinking. Basically, if he was in charge, we'd have all been a lot healthier. If you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. And so what do you need? The new tool is you need a new operating system. Now, on a computer, the operating system is the thing that basically runs the whole show. So Microsoft, you've got Windows. In Apple, you've got whatever the Apple operating system is. So the operating system, so now we've got Windows 10, it used to be Windows 9, or it used to be Windows 8 or Windows 7. And so if you upgrade your operating system, things should hopefully work better, unless you're Microsoft. So the first part of, okay, most people, let's actually look at most people's health operating system is they get up in the morning, brush their teeth, eat cereal or toast for breakfast, maybe have a vitamin pill, and if they're over 55, they're almost certainly taking some medicine. And then they tend to eat more wheat at lunchtime. Not a good idea. Finally, they eat some vegetables at dinner with possibly more wheat if they're having pasta. And if they're over 55, take some more medicine. They may exercise at some point during the day. They might. But they're much more likely to drink some alcohol or smoke some cigarettes, or they're almost certainly going to be inhaling exhaust fumes at various points throughout the day. And then at the end, they brush their teeth. And that's most people's operating system. And that's why most people, I think it's 95 to 97% of the population do not have a fully healthy, optimized lifestyle. That's why so many people will die of lifestyle-related disorders. And so the results of most people's health operating system is taking medicine for a chronic health condition. It's blood pressure problems, it's cholesterol problems, it's diabetes, it's acid reflux, heartburn, arthritis, overweight, 1 in 3 chance of cancer, ever increasing chance of dementia, and getting old by 55. So do you think you are in that health operating system? And would you like a new one? Oh, thank you, John. Yeah, iOS for Mac. So the Magnificent 7 health strategy is basically part of the whole operating system that I teach. And I learned from Dr. Bob. So you've got think right, first of all, that mindset thing, talk right. Communication is key if we're going to get out of this. Eat right, drink right, move right, sleep right, and finally poop right, which is detoxification. So how do you learn the Magnificent health strategies? Well, you could just read those and go out and do something. But what you could do is you could learn more in depth. And that's why a number of years ago, I put something called the Magnificent 7 Health Strategies coaching program. I've now done 2 different versions of it because the first version was so in depth. It was actually really, really great for health practitioners or for people who really have just such a huge interest in health. They want to learn everything they can, and they want to then help other people as well. So I've done 2 versions. The second version is a little bit lighter, and it helps then break you into the more in-depth first one. So, and yeah, that I sell for £397 if you really want to learn lots and lots and lots and install the operating systems. Or rather, that's how the operating systems work and what you need to do. But installing it can take a bit of time. So that's why I came up with 2 further programs. One is the Anti-Aging Health Lab, 7 weeks to a younger you. And this is where I take people through a number of strategies. Here's a nice picture. First of all, we help improve the raw materials in your body, so that's the eat right. Then we start looking at decreasing stress in your system. Then we increase the amount of energy and movement that you have, which helps increase human growth hormone, which helps rejuvenate you. Then we have a look at something called xenohormesis and a nutrient cycling. So that's lots of nutrient density to really up your system. Then we actually have a look at fasting, because fasting is one of the things that really helps reboot your entire immune system, and also detoxification processes. So the 7-week anti-aging health lab helps you install in a number of different processes the Magnificent 7. So there you go, there are all the steps. But I also realized that a lot of people need a lot more work up here. And so I came up with the Metanoia Mastermind. And metanoia is a great word that basically means a transformational breakthrough. So if you are looking for a transformational breakthrough up here, then the Metanoia Mastermind is for you, integrating the Magnificent 7 health strategies into your life. And there are 7 steps to that: assessment, taking a bird's eye view, tools for brain change, the facts of health, using the tools, building the plan, and then becoming the person that does the plan. Now, all these training programs I sell for $397. I'm not very creative there. The Magnificent 7 program should be a lot more, I think, but there you go. They're all available. Let's see. But what I have now done is, because blood pressure, in order to get a tackle of blood pressure really quickly, you could just follow the advice that I've given you so far, and there's a little bit more to come as well, and start doing those simple things, because for a lot of people, they are so close to getting under control. But for a lot of people, they've already tried a lot of stuff, okay, and they're confused as to what to do. So I am now starting to coach people specifically to lower blood pressure. And so basically, when people sign up for the coaching program, they get all of those other programs thrown in for use at a later date, and I can coach them through them to install the Magnificent Seven in their system. But it starts with a full let's lower the pressure consultation, trying to come up with 2-3 things that people can do immediately. There's one thing I'll show you in a minute. Personalized 10-day blood pressure blitz, which is taking Dr. Bob Rakowski's 7-day detox, extending it to 10 days, not quite so strict, but really looking at all of the mechanisms, not just nutrients and food, but we also look at movements and exercises to do a number of times throughout the day, and also acupressure points. There are 11 or 12 acupressure points proven to help lower blood pressure, and I'll share one with you in a moment. And then after the initial consultation, we have 11 weekly follow-ups as well, so a total of 12 weeks. Okay, and we try and identify how to eat right for you, exercise right for you, smelt the stress, melt the fat, and mold muscle, depending on which is needed, because everyone's a little bit different. We look at detox, different types of detox that might be needed, and immune resets, maybe fasting as well, and there's a whole load of other strategies. And so that's a 3-month program basically, because there's no magic bullet. So if you're interested in that, then you must be prepared to spend at least an hour a day on your health. Okay, and that includes preparing food, exercising as well. So it's not an hour of learning and then some time on exercise, some time on prep food. We're just going to spend some time every week. I'll tell you, work out what you need to do. I can send you other information that if you want to learn it as well at that time or at another later date. But basically, we'll work every week on lowering your blood pressure with specific strategies for you. So what I am going to say at the end is, if you're interested in any of the programs, you're interested in talking to me about blood pressure, even if you think you can't afford my services at the moment, I'd still like to talk to you because I want to try and get as much feedback as possible about what people want and need, so that I can then provide what people want, what they need, and also what can be afforded as well, basically at this time in the world. So here's something free for you to all try. And this is liver point 3. Liver point 3, okay, which is between your big toe and your second toe. There's a little groove in between the toes, and just where it then hits the bony point. So basically, this is, imagine this is my big toe. This is my toe next to it, okay, and it's the point just where the bones come together, and they're usually quite tender, okay. And you can just go to YouTube and put in liver 3 acupuncture or acupressure point location, and there'll be a number of videos showing you how to find it. And what you do is you apply pressure on it for 5 seconds and then release. Apply pressure for 5 seconds and release. And you do that a number of times over 3 minutes. And this point has been shown to help decrease blood pressure, not in everybody, but it does help lower those numbers. And if you start doing this 2 or 3 times a day, you may start, and you take your blood pressure maybe 15 minutes, 45 minutes later, you might see some changes happening. Now, the interesting thing is that it's called liver 3 and it's for blood pressure, but it's also one of the most important points in Chinese medicine for helping detoxification. So I think this was a very important point for most people to use, whether you have high blood pressure or not. And there are other points as well that I teach, but that is one that I think everyone can benefit from. So now you should be realizing that it's a scientific fact that chronic, toxic, and deficient this fails to fit on the slide. Chronic, toxic, and deficient lifestyle choices result in the genetic expression of adaptive stress physiology and illness. And so basically, if you are not doing the things to actually, what's the word I'm looking for, to actually set yourself straight in these things, then you're going to forever have a problem. Right. And to remind you, health has to be earned. Being healthy is more than surviving. You can't just show up one day and expect health to appear. Oh, there's a picture of me. There's my contact details. But again, everyone here, you've got my email address, so you just email me, and we'll set up a time to talk about what you would like to do, or whether it's with me or we can just talk through something for about 10 minutes and find out what can be done. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out the nitric oxide link. I'll send out the link to Organo Gold. I'll locate a video for you for the liver 3, and I'll also send out a list of the recommended nutrients as well. But remember, if you're going to start taking supplements, make sure you monitor your blood pressure, because if your blood pressure starts going low, you're going to start having side effects from the medication, and you need to talk to your doctor about lowering the medication. And so for you to send me, I would love some feedback. Okay, I would love some feedback, good or bad. But most importantly for you to do is to implement some of the actions that I spoke about. So invest in your health. It's the only way to have health is to earn it. So I hope you all enjoyed that. I know there's going to be a bit of a delay. So if there are any questions, type them in or Facebook them to me. Someone, I won't mention the name just in case, because I will be putting this up publicly at some point, I'm sure. Could having stopped drinking 2 large mugs of strong coffee a day drastically lower my blood pressure? Yes, it could. And on the second reading, what do you think? Yeah, basically, if you used to drink caffeine, a lot of it, and you stopped, and your blood pressure is lower, then it's probably likely that caffeine is not good for you. And again, if you've got high blood pressure and you've never tried stopping caffeine, then try stopping caffeine. Okay, and if you love caffeine, because caffeine actually, when it's done right, because a lot of instant coffees actually have artificial caffeine added to them. And artificial caffeine is a big problem, whereas natural caffeine, which is in the drinks that I drink, tends for most people not to be a problem at all. But you can test it. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I am going to stop the recording now.